got your notes at the top of the sheet, and you can read those. We are going to be in Genesis 30 and 31 today. It's a lot of text. If y'all will start reading when the notes come, the questions come out, it will tell you what the chapters for the next week are. You will be reading those. It will help you to just become acquainted with things as we unpack it. So we are going to see the 12 tribes. We are going to see the 12 tribes of Israel being born. This is foundational. This is when throughout the scriptures, even in the book of Revelation, it speaks of these 12 tribes. Who are these people? And we're going to see where they came from, their formation, if you will, and how God got to having these 12 sons that each had children and became the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is what we're looking at. And it is not for, it is people who study their Bibles that know it just did not come from Rachel and Leah. It came from when they married. It seems like at their marriage, they were each given a handmaid, a servant, if you will, and that was from the father, Laban. He gave them this person. And so I have a cousin named, it's Leslie's mother, named Rosemary Bryant. So I remember that Rachel, the R and the B, sometimes we call her RB. Rachel had Bilhah, and then I think of Led Zeppelin, and that's Leah had Zilpah. Not that that matters, but that's how I keep that straight. We don't even have to know those names. We do not have to know those names. All we need to know is that God used these 4 women, and one of them that we've already studied was the older daughter of this father, Laban. Laban is going to come into the story a little while, so I want us to go ahead and get his name down. Laban has these 2 children, and the older is Leah, and she is basically unloved. She is the least desirable. She is of the 2 children, and so Jacob loves the younger one, Rachel, and he ends up being married to both of them and gets these 2 servants. And through those 2 sisters and their servants, the 12 tribes are born. Well, already you should have a red flag in your head and say, what in the world was God doing? These are the 12, these are the pillars. And I believe it is set there so that we see the dysfunction of people and the faithfulness of God. And it should bring us all into the story of saying, wait, I do fit here. I fit here well, because God is not excusing. He does not excuse their sin. He deals with them. He is growing them. And we will see the maturation, the maturity of Jacob as we go. But he is born a supplanter, one who deceives. And today we're going to see there is so much rivalry. And I think if you were still enough, it's hard when you're in a group like this, because it's almost like we start thinking, she's not going to call on me, is she? So we just kind of go into a mode of, like automatic. But I believe that many of you, the majority of you is what I believe. If I said, do you understand the idea of rivalry, of course, that it is the competition to have one thing, or to be in superiority of a place or a position. And so it's this rivalry that is born out of a competition. And so, do you have experiences of rivalry with others? Are we people that kind of stir up some rivalry at times? Are we the one that's just trying to climb just a little higher than the next person to feel better about ourselves? And so we see this rivalry. It is not approved of, but we see that God will use even these sisters. They are a mess. And so you see Rachel and Leah, these are the 2 that are competing. And what I want us to see first, since we're not going to read every verse of these 2 chapters, I do want you to read these sometime. And we'll do a lot of them, but just go back and so you've got the story for yourself for 30 and 31. But when they have these children, like if you were going to name a child, let's say, okay, so I have a granddaughter, and her name is a double name. It's Ellie Tate. And so if you say, okay, what is her name? We didn't always do that with our names, right? I don't think anyone ever asked my parents what my name meant. But now we're in a day that we do ask that. What does that name mean? And so there was this lady in Haiti, and she was awesome. Her name was Eleanor, and she had lived there almost her whole life. She had connections to Jackson. I'm sure that's not surprising to you. But anyway, she had lived there and formed a hospital and a school and all this property. And Eleanor was in her 80s, and she was just so spunky. And so they named her Eleanor after Eleanor that was in Haiti. That was so foundational to those missions. And Tate means light. So they wanted this Ellie Tate. This is what the name means. Okay, well, that's a sweet little story, isn't it? That it's something that you hope. It's almost like we're going to name you this with the hopes. Maybe you will be a light. Maybe you will be like Eleanor. Maybe, something like that. We'll tell you, this is where we got your name. Well, these guys, every child they have, they're mad at this one. And I am making up this name. But it's like, I'm so mad at you, I could kill you. And then they name that child, Wish I Could Kill You. I mean, it's not about the child. It's about what they are feeling. And so when they're feeling whatever they feel at that time toward this rivalry, they name the child that. And you see, it's so turned inward. And they have no idea that God is blessing them with greatness that will be the fountain. We'll be talking about them today. These and throughout every lesson we ever have, probably of the story of God. This is where those 12 men come from. There is a daughter who's born. We don't know what her name means. It's the only one that it says. And then there was a girl. Her name was Dinah. And then it goes on with all the others. But we do learn about Dinah in chapters to come. Okay, so just so you're not like, why are we skipping her? Because they skip her here. So look on your sheets that I typed. Okay, and so these are the children by Leah. Leah is the one who says her eyes were weak. She was the older child that was not loved, but was kind of slipped in to be this wife of Jacob. She ends up having the most children. She has, and look at the lineup. I mean, these are some. Reuben is the firstborn. So we're going to see Reuben later. Reuben kind of takes the position of the firstborn, in some of their decisions. She has Reuben. She has Simeon, Levi. Levi is the lineage that's going to come to where all the priests are going to come from this guy. Judah. This is where Jesus is going to come from. She has the child to where Jesus is in that lineage. Of Leah, Issachar, Zebulun, and daughter Dinah. Okay, and daughter Dinah. We'll come back. Okay, so children by we have by Bilhah that belonged to Rachel was the next one who had children. So this is the other sister. She's like, I can't have children. Sleep with my mate and give me those children. So that's what the deal is there. So she has Dan, and it says, I feel vindicated. So she's saying, I feel better about myself now, right? Naphtali, it means great struggle. And it says specifically, she reflected Rachel's fight with her sister. I mean, that's like saying, I am so mad at you. I'm going to name this child Great Struggle because that's what's going on right now. And it's all your fault, And so the child grows up being great struggle because of the people turn so inward. We have children by Zilpah. That's the one who belonged to Leah. Gad, and that was fortunate. And what she was saying is, I feel fortunate now. I feel fortunate that I have this child because it's going to kind of give me one up. You have Asher. This is the blessing. This is the blessing of the Lord. The Lord is pleased with me. And maybe not so much with you because so far it's not going well for you, but it is a blessing. I am in the blessings of God. Children by Rachel is way near the end, and she has Joseph, which is going to explain Rachel is who Jacob loves so much. And they have this son, and explains the coat that he gives him and all the jealousy of the brothers. I mean, you can just see this turmoil in here of how this is just, these women are just stirring the pot, and they don't realize the rivalry that they are creating affects other people and even generations. And I find myself saying, oh boy, I need to make sure, I need to look at my life, the things that I stir up with my words. Do they have rivalry woven in there somewhere? It wouldn't be as blatant as naming a child after it. I think I'm smarter than that, than to reveal that of my heart. But just to always make sure that we're checking things to say, are we indeed looking at these dissensions and saying, are we part of that? This is so neat because to go along with this, there's a lady, and she's over the women's ministry of a church, and she doesn't live in Tennessee. And so she texted me this week, and she said, would you please pray? We're doing a women's event this last Saturday. And she said, there's one woman. She said, you wouldn't even think it'd be her. She's like this sweet little grandmother, but she has come out of nowhere, and she is causing such dissension that no matter what we say, it's like that's not the way to do it. And it's causing all this stuff. And it was like, that's what it is. And she's wanting her way for this event. And so not listening to anyone else and not esteeming others better than herself is what the scriptures tell us to do. In Galatians, it tells us dissensions, rivalries, they are not of the Lord. So that we would learn from this, obviously God is going to bless these people as he will bless us. But we want to judge our hearts when they're showing up like this. This is a big topic here of this rivalry of these people. So we have Joseph, and then years later, Benjamin is going to be born to Rachel. So she's only going to have the two children, Joseph and Benjamin. And that's why when Joseph is, the father believes that Joseph has been dead. And he says, okay, Joseph says, go back and get your father. Is there another child? And they said, yes, there has been another child born. Benjamin. He said, bring him here. And the father says, no way, you've already taken Joseph. You're not taking Benjamin. That's because he was this other child by Rachel, the one he loved so much. So who does Jesus, we look at this, and I saw it in a commentary, and I started looking at it, and it's like it is true. Jesus came to us like Leah. He came as the one who was despised. He came to the one who was rejected. He came as one who was rejected. He came to the one that no one wanted to be around. And he was not without any stately form that we would look upon him and want to be like him. It's like he saw Leah, and then you have, from Leah, you have this lineage of Jesus. And we want to make sure that we are not judging people according to the rules that we have made in our society. Like, if you're educated, okay, you get a point. If you're nice looking, you get a point. If you drive a convertible, you get another point. You know what I'm saying? You got the idea. And I wish I had a convertible. I'm not. If you have a convertible, I'm saying these are the things people esteem. And so we want to make sure that we realize this is not the game. This is not how the game is played. The game of life is that we will stand before the Lord and he will say, did you know me? Did you know me? And that we would answer yes or no to that question. And that opens all doors. That opens the next decisions that are asked. And it is, what did you do for me after knowing me? Did we walk in those ways, just step by step, to say, Lord, I want my life to be your life? Because God is doing amazing things in our lives, even for generations to come, that we may never see. But we want to be faithful for God to do the things he wants us to do. Look on your sheet. Okay, so Jesus is in the lineage of Judah. Is everybody good with that? Yeah. You with me? Okay, so look at the bottom of page 1 where it says Genesis 49:9. We are in Genesis 31 or 30, whatever we are in. And so I'm jumping ahead. But I want to show you how this plays out. When Jacob is going to die, he's about to die, and he brings all these 12 sons in, he's going to bless them, like Abraham had done, like Isaac had done, and now here we have Jacob. Jacob is going to bless his sons. So he brings Judah in, and he's the one that the lineage, that Jesus is in his lineage, is going to bring and is going to bless him. And these were prophecies, these were prophetic blessings over these people. He says, Judah, my son, is like a young lion that has finished eating its prey. Like a lion crouches and lies down, like a lioness, who dares to rouse him? In other words, he is going to accomplish things, he is going to devour his prey, and it is going to be very satisfying. The scepter, speaking of a scepter, one who rules, the scepter will never depart from Judah. How is that fulfilled? Because Jesus is going to come through his lineage and he will reign forever. Okay, so he's specifically speaking of Jesus in the future that will come. That you know none of them have any idea what this means. Okay, so the scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his descendants, until the coming of the one to whom it belongs, speaking of Jesus, the one to whom all nations will honor. There is one coming from you, Judah, and he will rule, and all nations will know him. Revelation 5, we're still talking about it. there's a scroll that cannot be taken. No one can take that from God. It's going to, I believe, unleash the end times events. And they're saying, okay, someone go get that from God. Here's a scroll. Who can open this? That someone needs to open this seal. And everybody's looking around. It sounds like in heaven, and they're looking at each other saying, I can't either. And so the person just begins to weep. It's like, we've come this far and no one can do, there's no one worthy. I mean, can you imagine being in heaven at this time and they'll look and say, you go get it. And you're like, I'm not going to go get it. I can't go get it. And that's how everyone's doing. Like, there's no way that we can approach the throne of God and say, yeah, I'll take it. That this is God Almighty. And it says, and so then the angel says, hey, quit weeping. Quit weeping. I mean, there's like, there's crying. It's so disappointing. There's no one worthy to open the scroll. And they said, there is one. If you have one, that's like we're all locked in somewhere and it says, well, we have one person with the key. It's like, well, go get the one person with the key, right? I mean, it's like, we don't all have to have a key. And in heaven, they're saying there is one. And so it is Jesus. He is the only one who is worthy. And they said he's worthy of all honor and glory. He is the one. And because of him, we all come into this privilege. So that's the setting of Revelation 5:4. So I will read it now at the bottom of page 1 on your notes. Then I began to weep bitterly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll and read it. But one of the 24 elders said to me, stop weeping. Look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the heir to David's throne. He's won the victory. That's enormous. The tribe of Judah, the Lion of Judah is Christ. And he is the one who devours our prey. The one who is satisfied. The one who will reign forever. I do want you to read this at the bottom of page 1. The Bible Knowledge Commentary says, Genesis is clear. God chose the despised mother Leah and exalted her to be the first mother. The kingly tribe of Judah and the priestly tribe of Levi traced back to her in spite of Jacob's love for Rachel and her son Joseph. It was because God comes to us not because we are lovely, but because God loves us. And that he looks at us and that we are all, once again, I've said this I think the last 2 weeks, the race does not go to the swift. It's not set up like, yeah, you have the most points of these things that the world honors that we talked about. But those things don't matter. It is, do you know Jesus? And did you live for him? Okay, so go to, I do want to look at this so you can, I want you to look at verse 6. It's actually at the top of page 41 is where I'm going with this. Because I want you to look at these children. I think it's so interesting. If you are not here, if you're not using this Bible, if you're not here, you can come on in. Chapter 30, verse 6. Okay, so Rachel named him Dan, and she said, God has vindicated me. You see it? It's about her. Okay, he's heard my request. Bilhah became pregnant again, gave Jacob a second son, so Rachel named him, Rachel's the one naming him, Naphtali. For she said, I've struggled hard with my sister and I'm winning. So the name of it is My Struggle. I am getting this thing. I am kicking this sister. So let's name this child My Struggle. Meanwhile, Leah realized that she wasn't getting pregnant anymore because she's already had the children we talked about last week. And so she took a serpent, Zilpah, and gave it to Jacob. Soon Zilpah presented him with a son, and Leah named him Gad, for she said, how fortunate I am. Then Zilpah gave to Jacob a second son, and Leah named him Asher. And his favorite song should be Because I'm Happy, because that is what her name is. His name means happy. I am happy. I am Asher. And so but she's saying once again, I am happy because I am winning this deal. This rivalry, I am enough points ahead. It looks like I'm going to win this thing. Where she said, what joy is mine. Now the other women will celebrate with me. Do you see it? Now the other women are going to, they're going to come around now. They're going to think I'm somebody now. Okay, one day during the wheat harvest, here we go. Reuben is the oldest of all those children, of all those 12 children. Reuben is the oldest. And from what I can understand, he is still a young boy. I couldn't do the math in my head, but what I read is he's still a young boy, like 5-ish. And I would think he'd be much older. But anyway, he is in the field, he is playing, and he finds these mandrakes. They're called, in this time, they were often called love apples. I got so confused. I spent so much time. I could not figure out. Some people said it's the root. You pull up the root of a mandrake, and it almost looks like a person, like an anatomy person. Like the roots go like this, and they go like this. The roots. So some people believe that it was a fertility, like an aphrodisiac. And so but other people said no, it was the leaves. You put the leaves in something, and that's what they. Another were like, no, it was the fruit of these. It was called love apple, little fruit. And so I don't know the answer to that. I do want to tell you that it does get confusing, and I'm doing this just to solely entertain you. But my daughter, when she was getting some education, and she ended up in another country. She was in Singapore, and they were doing this big light show with fire. And I love the playing of fire like that. I like that, like with the fireplace and all those things. I love that. And she announced to this group, my mother would love this because she's a nymphomaniac. It's like, no. And so she called later and she said, you're not going to be happy with me. So when we see this aphrodisiac, you have to know that this was to enhance them for having children. So you see how that becomes, it's like, oh wow, this is really playing into the story, right? I mean, it's like, oh wow. Okay, this is prized because I'm in this rivalry, and now I've got these love apples, if you will, this fruit in my possession. And so this is what verse, I'm there, 14. Okay, so one day during the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandrakes growing in a field and brought them to his mother, Leah. Okay, so Leah has the mandrakes. And Rachel comes along and she says, please give me those, because she's not had children. Okay, please give me these. But Leah has them. And she says, give me some of your son's mandrakes. But Leah angrily replied, wasn't it enough that you stole my husband? Now will you steal my son's mandrakes too? Do you see, and it sounds like that Jacob is no longer with Leah in a manner in which she could have children. Because she's saying, you've taken him from me. We know that happened within a week of when she was married to him. I mean, there's been this rivalry it's a mess. It's why polygamy is not a good thing, to say the least. But you have all these things going on. And so she says, would you please give me those mandrakes? And so she said, oh, you're going to take my husband and you're going to take this too? I mean, so you see that animosity? Okay. Rachel answered, I will let Jacob sleep with you tonight if you give me some of the mandrakes. Oh my. I just wish I could have talked to Jacob at this point. And said, you like this? Or you don't like this? You know. So that evening, Jacob was coming from the fields, and Leah went out to meet him. And she said, you must come and sleep with me tonight. So what Rachel thinks is going to happen is she's going to take this mandrake, this fruit, whatever it is whatever she takes, and it's going to make her more likely to conceive. Okay, so for that, she's willing to give Leah one night with Jacob. So then she's going to go back with Jacob and have these children. Y'all, you with me with the story? It's a little confusing. So she said, I've paid for you with some mandrakes my son found. That's what she says to Jacob. I am going to sleep with you tonight because I bought you. I wanted to call Julianne and say, isn't this sex trafficking? I mean, because one of the definitions is you have to have payment for sex. That's one of the definitions. It's like, but if they're married, that's over my pay grade. So, but I have paid for you with some mandrakes that my son found. So that night he slept with Leah, and guess what happened? She gets pregnant. I did not. So you can see this is not going to appease anything. If anything, just exacerbated. She became pregnant again and gave birth to a fifth son for Jacob. She named him Issachar, for she said, God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband as a wife. Okay, so the word Issachar, I want you to look on your notes. Okay, page 2. And then almost near the top of the page, I guess it says King James Version, Genesis 40:16. instead of saying reward, this is what it says in the King James Version. In other words, it's a reward like you get wages. Like you work for something and you get the reward of that. That's the word of reward. Okay, so it's clearer to me in the King James. King James, Genesis 40:16. And Jacob came out in the field in the evening and Leah went out to meet him. That should be 30, y'all. I'm sorry. That should be 30:16. Y'all see what I've done? Okay. Jacob came out in the field and Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come in to me, for surely I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. That's your memory verse for the day. And he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob the 5th son. So Leah was praying as well. And Leah said, God has given me my hire. I hired him because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she named his name Issachar. Issachar means my hire, my reward. Once again, it's situational. I paid for this, and I'm going to name this child. He's my. This was my hire. Okay. Verse 19. Leah became pregnant, gave son. She had another son. She named him Zebulun. Verse says, God has given me a good reward. Now my husband will treat me with respect. I've been rewarded. Now I will have this thing that I have been a rivalry for. This competition will finally be up because my husband is going to look at me and say, you know what? You have borne the most children. You won. But she didn't win. And that's how life works. That's how all the sin works. It promises us things. And it's like, yes, we did win. Yes, we've got the card. We've got it punched. We did everything. But it's because it's not the end of the game. It does not fulfill us. It doesn't come to play in a fulfilling way. And God is calling us to invest in who He is, that He satisfies our souls. That we would be, don't you want to go back and name these kids and say that they each said, you know what, this is the situation we're in. Let's trust God with this. I'm not going to fight you over this. I'm going to stay before the Lord. And we do that ourselves. We look around and say, but they don't look like they're doing any better than I am, and God's blessing them, and I'm suffering. Or we look at this and say, why is it that I'm in this situation, and I don't think I deserve this? And so then we're like, and you don't deserve it either, and you have it. And so it's like we build something up, and God, we want to realize that is just, it is bait of Satan. Because competition is always something that we are showing we're not trusting God. We're wanting something for ourselves, and we are willing to compete with the strength that we have in order to conquer. And that is not of the Lord. The Lord wants us to be still, know He's God, commit our situation to Him, and say, will you be exalted in this? If you give, you give. If you take away, you take away. But I'm going to bless you, Lord, because I trust you. That's the complete opposite of these people. Okay, verse 21, later she gave birth to a daughter named Dinah. Okay, named her Dinah. We don't know what that means. And God remembered Rachel and answered her prayers by enabling her to have children. She became pregnant, gave birth to a son. God has removed my disgrace. And so she named him Joseph. That is what Joseph is all about. For she said, and it almost has a double meaning of may He add and that taken away disgrace. So it's like He's taken away the disgrace, and may He continue to do so. And so we know that in the end, she does have another child, and that would be Benjamin. But that's not in this. That's not in this text today. That's later. Okay. So let's see. So they realized that at this point it is time. I'm at the bottom of page 41 on your Bible, and I'm on chapter 30, verse 25. Soon after Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, please release me so I can go to my own country. Let me take my wives and children, for I've earned them by serving you, and let me be on my way. He's been there for a long time. What is at home for him? What is waiting at home? It's not going to be easy. What happened with his twin brother? Remember, he left because he had deceived his brother. And so he's afraid he's going to kill him. So it's like, oh, I'm either going to be here with Laban, or I'm going to go home and face, it's tough. These are tough decisions. But it's time to go now. And so he comes to him and he says, can I stay with you? When I leave? He said, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Before you leave, let's work just a little bit longer. And he said, this is what we'll do. And he said, just so you can prosper. he said, let's divide these animals that we have. You've made me very, very prosperous. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to separate. And so this is the idea. Any animal that has like a spot, it's a black animal, or it has spots or, coloring to it, then those animals are going to be, they're going to be Jacob's. But if they are just fine with it, just all lovely, if you will, they're going to go to Laban. And so they make this deal. Okay, I'll stay a little bit longer for these wages. But then Laban goes and gets all those animals that are likely to reproduce. They're the ones that are spotted, striped, all the things. And he tells his servants, go take those about 3 days away. So he takes those animals away. So again, he's deceiving. He's deceiving. And so you have Jacob who's living with this constant deception. And we're going to see how God is using that to show him and to remove that from himself. And so he stays there. But so the word Laban means white. And so he is going to take these sticks, and I don't understand this unless the Lord just told him to do it. I mean, I can't give you any background. But he takes these sticks and he pulls them down. He reveals the white in the stick. He pulls it down and he puts that in the feeding trough. And when the animals come to mate in front of that trough, they are very, is that word? Can that be prolific? It means they have a bunch. Yeah. A bunch of animals. Okay, without the mandrakes, you get the idea. Okay. So they are. But it's so interesting because you almost wonder if it's not God. It is a possibility that is God. You see this injustice, and I am revealing Laban, but I'm trusting you, and that would be a great thing. That we could say, Lord, this is not fair. This is coming against me. I want this. I'm not hiding this. I'm admitting this is trouble. But Lord, would you let me find success with you? And that's exactly what happened. He becomes very, very wealthy. And so they're finally like, okay, we got to go. The girls are even saying, no, Dad is taking all our money. We need to get out of here. The kids are everywhere, and then we have the two maids. And so they are all going to leave Laban. And so he's like, I think he could really, really be mad. So they decide that they're going to leave without telling him. And just from his, how that's going to go. This is not going to go well. Okay, so let's go down. And once again, you can read all these things. If just because I'm looking at it, look at 34. Just so you can just see a little of what I just told you for yourself. All right, Laban replied, it will be as you say. But that very day, Laban went out and removed the male goats that were streaked and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled or spotted or had white patches, and all the black sheep. He placed them in the care of his own sons, who took them a 3 days' journey from where Jacob was. You see it? That's where he's removing them. So he's decreasing the chances that Jacob could profit. Okay, so then for 37, Jacob took some fresh branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and peeled off strips of bark, making white streaks on them. Then he placed these peeled branches in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, for that was where they mated. And when they mated in front of the white streaked branches, they gave birth to young that were streaked, speckled, and spotted, the very ones he was going to get to keep. Jacob separated those lambs from Laban's flocks, and the mating time he turned the flock to face Laban's animals that were streaked or black. That's how he built his own flock, and so it goes on from there. So what we see that Jacob is no longer deceiving. Jacob is actually saying, I'm going to just be content with what the Lord is doing. Okay, so go down to chapter 31. Jacob soon learned that Laban's sons were grumbling about him. And Jacob has robbed our father of everything, they said. He has gained all his wealth at our father's expense, and Jacob began to notice a change in Laban's attitude toward him. And then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your father and grandfather and to your relatives, and I will be with you. Okay, now remember that's what he said when he was at Bethel. If you return to this place, I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to protect you. So they start leaving. And this is going to be start in Genesis 31:22. Okay, so they left, and so Laban was coming after them. 3 days later, Laban was told that Jacob had fled, so they were 3 days ahead of him. So he gathered a group of his relatives and set out in hot pursuit. He caught up with Jacob 7 days later in the hill country, but the previous night God appeared to Laban in a dream and told him, I'm warning you, leave Jacob alone. He is fighting for Jacob because and we know that Jacob has ceased fighting for himself. And I believe that there is something to that. I think that, God says, vengeance is mine, I will repay. So they catch up with him, and he says to verse 26, what do you mean by deceiving me like this? Laban demanded. How dare you drag my daughters away like prisoners of war? Why did you slip away secretly? Why did you deceive me? And why didn't you say you wanted to leave? I would have given you a farewell feast. Yeah, right. He already told him he wanted to leave, and he wouldn't let him. Accompanied by tambourines and harps. Why didn't you let me kiss my daughter and granddaughters and grandchildren and tell them goodbye? You have acted very foolishly. I could destroy you, but the God of your father appeared to me last night and warned me to leave you alone. Okay, so he said, I rushed, verse 31, I rushed because I was afraid. I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. It goes on to say that Laban then says, okay, well, also you took, the word is teraphim. It's a household idols. There were idols that Laban would worship. And he said, they're gone, you took those. And he goes, I did not take those. Turns out Rachel had taken them, and she had hidden them somehow, either under her dress or in the south, something like this, up under her. And so Jacob said, you can search everything. I did not take the teraphim. I did not take the idols. So he starts looking, he looks everywhere, and Rachel said, you'll have to excuse me for not getting off this camel because I'm in my period right now. And so I think he's like, fine, you just stand there, And she uses that because she's sitting on those idols. And so once again, you see, this is a tricky bunch of people. Okay, they are tricky. And so he says, okay, so then that kind of appeases things. And then but where I want us to go to here is that they end up saying, okay, this is, if y'all want to see this for yourselves, it's Genesis 31:35. It's the top of page 43. She said to her father, please, sir, forgive me if I don't get up for you. I'm having my monthly period. So Laban continued his search, but he could not find the household idols. So Jacob became very angry and he challenged Laban, what is my crime? This is Jacob back to his father-in-law. What have I done that you would chase me like I'm a criminal? You've rummaged through everything I own. Now show me what you found that belongs to you. Because he doesn't know Rachel has this. Set it out here in front of us before our relatives for all to see. Let them judge before us. For 20 years I've been with you, caring for your flocks. In that time, your sheep and your goats never miscarried. In those years, I never used a single ram of yours for food. If any were attacked and killed by wild animals, I never showed you the carcass. And I asked you to reduce the count of your flock. No, I took the loss myself. You've made me pay for every stolen animal, whether it was taken in broad daylight or in the dark of night. We see here that Jacob is no longer deceiving him. In fact, he's taking some of the brunt. And we can see that God is going to reward this. And is working it out in him to reflect Christ. I worked for you through the scorching heat of the day and through the cold and sleepless nights. Yes, for 20 years I slaved in your house. I worked for 14 years earning your $2. And then 6 more years for your flock. He said, and in that time you changed my wages 10 times. If God had not been on my side, you would have sent me away empty-handed. So they make this treaty, and this is where I want to end here. This is from 43 to the end. And start with verse 48 on the top of page 44. This is what they decide to do. They decide that they're going to get all these stones. They have the relatives here that have come with Laban chasing them. And they have Jacob and all his family. And they get these rocks and they set up one pillar, this kind of a watchtower symbol, a pit symbol, sort of a watchtower. And then they all put these stones around it. So they're surrounded with these stones. And they said, okay, and one of them said, let's call it this. And it was in their original language. The other said, no, let's call it this. It was their original language. I mean, they're still calling it the same thing, just in their own language. And so they said, okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to call this watchtower. It's going to be called Mizpah. M-I-Z-P-A-H, Mizpah. Some of you may find that familiar because you can, when it's probably in the 80s or 90s, I'm not sure, but there were these I was familiar with these things, and it was a round, something on a bracelet or a necklace, a keychain, and it was round like this, but the inside was jagged, and it fit together. The other side was jagged also. It looked like it just come apart. And you would give one to one person, and you would keep the other. And on that mizpah, if you clicked, they didn't fit like clicking, but if you put them together, it would say, "May the Lord watch between us while we are absent one from the other." Does any of you remember those things? They were mizpahs. Well, that is a complete misrepresentation of what this is. What they said is, okay, we're going to draw, this is what it meant. We're going to draw the line in the sand. This watchtower, it's going to make sure you don't come get me. And this watchtower is going to make sure I don't come beat you up, kill you. And so we are never going to pass this place to come after the other later. And may the Lord watch between us while we are absent from one another, that we do not change our mind and come for retribution. You see it? So I ended with a little something that might be interesting to you. Look at the bottom of page 3. But you have to know that if someone was really looking for the things of God, you would only give a mizpah to someone that you did not trust. And you're trying to protect yourself and your family. This is like, okay, this is serious mistrust, and I am so wary of you, W-A-R-Y, that we need the Lord. We need to make a covenant. So they made a covenant with all of them. They sat down, they ate and they drank, and they said, okay, we will do this. So I looked up mizpah jewelry. This is how it's advertised. A mizpah necklace is a sentimental piece of jewelry acting as a token of love and protection for separated individuals, based on the biblical phrase, "The Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent one from another." Genesis 31:49. That's our text. It often features a coin, metal, or heart shape split in two, meant to be shared between lovers, friends, or family to signify a strong, enduring bond. And I tell you this because that could not be farther from the truth. And so it is only by knowing the scriptures that we learn these things. And so I want to congratulate you and to tell you, you wouldn't have to be here this morning, but that you can know what the Bible really says and instead of what people say it says, that you would get in there. The most expensive one I found, I Googled, was 14-karat gold mizpah for $1,289.95. But you do get free shipping, which will help if you want to send it to someone you don't trust, and you have made a covenant and eaten a meal with them in the witness of your relatives, for the Lord to keep you forever separated from each other, so that you can't deceive nor destroy the other. The Lord will be the watchtower, the mizpah for this. Okay, so mizpah, you got it? It is not what the world thinks it is, and neither is God. God is a God who is saying, in the midst of such dysfunction, I remain completely whole, and I know what I'm doing, and you can rest in who I am. Okay, let's go to the questions.